Hi guys, welcome to Star Wars Sunday. Today I'm going to be talking about Star Wars Galaxies and the profession creature handler, which definitely was my favorite. I'm going to be showing you recordings I did yesterday on Star Wars Galaxies Emu, and I'll be talking about that a bit later. Also, I am gonna talk about my new moments in Star Wars Galaxies. I am gonna talk a bit about being a creature handler, or the images I'll show you. It's gonna be a lot about being a creature handler, so I'm not gonna talk too much about that. And then I'm gonna be talking about some of my experiences in Star Wars Galaxies, including how I started out, what my expectations were, and yeah, it's gonna be a trip down memory lane. If you want to learn something about this old game, or if you played it, or you are still playing it in an emu, you're probably familiar with the terms I'm using, and if you're not, then feel free to leave a comment and ask me. I'm talking about my noob moments in this game. Before we continue, I want to say that I use the term noob a lot, and there are two ways to describe the term noob. The usual way people use that term is as an insult. I'm not doing that. It's not meant for... It's like saying a baby is a noob, is what I'm doing, right? Because a baby is a total noob, and I mean that in the most lovingly way possible. I could have said newbie, and I usually do that when I'm in a game, because people can't hear my voice, they can't hear me not being insulting. So, but you can hear my voice, you know I don't mean it to be insulting. We're all noobs in most things in the world, so I'm using it as a newbie, not as you're totally ignorant of everything and we don't like you. It's not meant like that. Trust me. So, here we go. If you know about Star Wars Galaxies, you probably also know there are dedicated people out there that has grabbed the code and made Star Wars Galaxies Emu. So it's alive and kicking still, and they are releasing patches and updates on a regular basis. So back when we started the game, there was nothing happening. You just started on, you picked a starter planet. I picked, of course, Tatooine. You know, who wouldn't want to start on Tatooine? I was so eager to see Mos Eisley Cantina and, you know, where it all happened. So, you start the game, you see a little trailer or intro, and then you're in the world, and all I could see was dust, and the sounds from the sandstorm hitting my face was just overwhelming. For a second I was thinking, something is wrong with my sound card or something. The first thing I noticed, other than the sandstorm hitting my face, was all these speech bubbles. And I was wondering, are they talking to me? What's going on? There was a lot of yelling and talking. People were spamming the area around the starport with messages like, come to my shop, here and there and so and so. And I was thinking, they're not talking to me because what? I was so confused. And so, yeah, I had never played an MMO. I knew the basics, but I hadn't really thought about the chat system, nothing. So I figured, okay, fine. They don't look like they're expecting me to answer. No one was in my immediate area or in my face. So I realized, fine, they're trying to sell stuff. Okay. And that was awesome because it was like being in one of the busiest streets in Oslo. Yeah, I loved the busy feel, but I felt like, oh no, I want to explore the whole planet, which of course was a bad idea to begin with. I had nothing but my feet. I must have had some sort of weapon, a knife or a shotty pistol or something. And so after a quick visit to the cantina, there was so many people in there, and they were dancing. Some were playing instruments. The bar was filled with people. People were talking. People were doing all sorts of emotes. I had no clue what was going on. And I felt like, well, too much was coming at me at the same time. So I decided to go back out. I had no clue about buffs from the entertainers. Nothing. Quickly, I realized I was outside the Mos Eisley wall and I saw animals. So I went up to this funny looking rat, a womp rat, a fat ugly thing with puny legs, and it just looked at me weird, and then I decided, yeah, it's a good idea to shoot this thing. Yeah, it wasn't. It was, I was level 1, and the rat was, I think, level 3, a massive level 3. And I was dead before I knew it. Yep. And I later learned that if you're gonna kill anything in the game without being hit when your hit points are so low, you need to run. You need to run and shoot. Run and shoot. Kite, run, and just, yeah. You're running forward, but you're pointing your gun behind you and shooting. Yeah. I hated that. It didn't feel, it just confirmed my feeling that I hated the shooter part of a game. And luckily for me, I looted an axe from some criminal on the outskirts of Mos Eisley. I don't even remember how I was able to kill those guys, but there was a gang of criminals, thugs, and I managed to kill a couple of them, and then I looted this awesome axe. Yeah, well, it was ugly, but it had stats, and the stats compared to the pistol I had, when in hindsight, having a pistol shoot and run would probably have been a better way to kill off a lot of enemies. So, noob moment, my first one in Star Wars Galaxies, wasn't any unfortunate death by womp rat. Yeah, the sandstorm dissipated and I could see blue sky. I could see the twin suns. Everything was just how you would expect Tatooine to look. And yeah, I was exploring the city, I was exploring probably the outskirts, and so suddenly the sky darkened, and in Star Wars Galaxies it gets really dark. If you're in an area, especially a wooded area, you can't even see your character, and there's a torch light you can activate, but I hadn't figured it out yet, and I didn't even know I had needed one. So I looked outside and I saw the sky darkening outside my window and in the game. And at that exact moment when I realized, when I noticed, my husband came walking by, and I turned around and I said to him, "Wow, would you look at this? The game knows my time. It knows it's getting dark." Ah, I'm still embarrassed to say it out loud. Why would I even think that? I mean, yeah, that would mean everywhere in the world you would be sitting, the game would look different. The sky would be, it would be midday for some, and right, it wouldn't work. So yeah, when I said it, I felt like it was amazing. It was so amazing they did that, and then I realized that can't be true. It can't be. But it happened at the same time. It must be true. Yeah. You know, it's in the game, the night is not 10 hours long. So it got to be the next day in the game while I was still sitting there and it was dark outside. So yep, I felt like such a fool. Fast forward a couple of months, I felt like I knew everything about the game by now, right? I was an experienced fencer. I could fend off a lot of aggressive animals and mobs, so I felt so accomplished. I felt like I could do everything. And I had gotten a new speeder, and it was amazing. Like one of these speeders, a swoop. And that was such an awesome Star Wars moment for me, because yeah, one of the most epic moments in Star Wars, the Star Wars movies, must have been the speeder chase, right? Of course, those speeders went a lot faster than the speeders in game, but I didn't care. It was such an awesome feeling. I felt like now I was ready to move on to more dangerous planets. And so I made a bad decision, a very bad decision. Yeah, I went to Endor because, yeah, it was fitting, right? I wanted to race my swoop bike on Endor. So the idea was good, right? You have to agree to that. It was a good idea. Yeah, not so much. I went to, I don't remember if there's one or two starports on Endor, but I remember landing on a starport in the middle of the map. There was jungle all around the place, and I could see there was an area with lakes or maybe the ocean, and I headed that way, in that direction, because just randomly picked a direction and went for it, right? Yeah, it lasted for, I think, 5 minutes. I could see the red dots on my radar. I knew to avoid them because I realized Endor had enemies that I wasn't ready to face. But that's not a problem when you're on a speeder, right? I'd been avoiding so many critters on Tatooine on my swoop bike, so this wouldn't be a problem. It really, I was going at, I think, 80 kilometers an hour, and what's that, 55 miles or something? I think, yeah, that's pretty fast, right? There's not a lot of animals that can run that fast, so I'm good, right? Yeah, and actually that's true. There's not a lot of animals running at 55 miles an hour. The thing is, you hit a lair, and there's 5 critters around that lair that get pissed you're there. And before you realize where you're at, they're attacking you. So, that's exactly what happened to me. I was in the thickest forest you can imagine, and I heard this weird thud on my swoop. And I realized something was hitting my swoop. I couldn't see what it was yet, and I didn't stop. So I just kept on going. And to this day, I don't know what kind of animal it was. I just heard it following me through the underbrush, and then I decided, no, this is probably not the best of ideas. I'm heading for the hills. I wanted to go up the mountains and get a good look of Endor, because at this point, I didn't think it would be a huge problem. So I continued on, and yeah, I think I got a couple 100 meters further, and then there was more red dots on my radar, because now everything loaded. And I could see red dots to the north, to the east, to the west, everywhere. So I had no choice but to zigzag around. And yeah, the aggro range on Endor is a problem compared to, well, actually, the aggro range everywhere is a problem if you're not careful. I got thrown off my swoop bike by this huge animal. If you're quick, you can reach for your speeder again and take off. And that's what I did. Because for some miraculous reason, he didn't kill me with one hit. So I quickly got back up on my swoop bike and just ran for the hills. And at this point I realized, shit, I can die. I can die here in the middle of nowhere, and they can kill your speeder. Basically kill your speeder. And if that's ruined, you're gonna have to walk back to the spaceport. And that would have been such a nightmare. I didn't want to die. I didn't want to lose my speeder, because it had taken me quite a while to get enough credits to buy it. And I didn't want to lose it. So I was so scared. It's amazing when I think about it now, because it was only a game, and it was only a pixel speeder, a pixel vehicle. But I was so immersed into my world that I couldn't I couldn't face it. I couldn't lose my speeder. And yeah, I know I say speeder and then I say swoop bike, but the thing is, they're all speeders, but this particular one was called a swoop bike. Anyway, I ran as fast as I could. I had no clue about auto run yet, so I had to hold W down and just zigzagging between trees. So the engine on my swoop was starting to fizzle and sputter, and then it said poof. And I was still going, but the flames are sticking out from the engines told me that this swoop is about to die. So I just went straight ahead, and I finally came to the mountains, and there they were. I never looked at them, so I'm not sure what kind of animals they were. They were just monsters out to get me. I've been going straight ahead for probably 10-15 minutes. And now I realized I had to go back the same way. Yeah, so my whole journey on Endor was probably half an hour just escaping animals. And when I finally saw the walls, the outer walls of the starport, you could hear me sigh, big sigh of relief. I'm not kidding. And I was so tired. My arms, my hand had been crushing the W button on my keyboard for 30 minutes, and I'd been thrown off the speeder twice and still lived, and my speeder was coughing. It was just making all these noises of I'm dying, I'm about to explode. So I quickly bought a ticket to Tatooine, because I knew Tatooine had in Mos Eisley, I knew where the repair garage was. And yeah, I was so embarrassed to call my speeder when I loaded in Mos Eisley, because that was embarrassing, having a speeder that was about to go poof. It probably isn't. A lot of people have probably done the same thing, and I see people driving around with speeders with flames sticking out of it all the time, because it's so expensive to repair them that people just use them until their engine explodes, and then they buy a new one. Oh, I need to talk about my very first group experience. Yeah, I'm not proud of that either, but it turned out okay, just saying. So, as I mentioned, I wasn't very big on groups because I felt like exploring, and I was such a noob still, so I didn't want to show off my noobness until I did. Well, I had gone to a new planet. I think it was Dantooine. I was big and strong and decided to go to Dantooine and fight Hurtons and other critters that were aggressive, and people used them. It was sort of a group grind planet. People were grinding and leveling up. These big animal spots, taking missions. So I decided to join a group. How hard can it be, right? Yeah, and so I heard someone saying they were looking for people, and I sent a tell to the group leader, and he invited me to the group. Everything's perfect by that point. And I'm in the area where the spaceport is, and I thought they were close. They had asked me to go to a certain shuttle port. I went there, and I couldn't see them. So I told the group leader, I don't know where you are. And they sent me this long string of text. It said /waypoint and then a lot of numbers. And I had no clue what to do with that. And I wouldn't tell them. That was probably my first mistake, because they would have explained it easily and I would have gone straight to where they were. Yeah, with no problem. So I hit the map and I pointed at the area where the numbers would make sense. So I realized they were not that far away. For each 30 seconds, I hit the map, pointed at the area where I thought they would be, or at least somewhere in that area, because I couldn't line up the mouse to point at exactly the coordinates. But I was heading in the right direction, and I finally got there, and I saw them hitting this huge lair with huge animals. I think they were bulls. And yeah, I just quickly got off my speeder, started hitting one of the animals, and had a blast for a couple of minutes. Yeah. I got a tell from the group leader asking me what I was doing over there. And they were just about 200 meters away. My group. Yeah, I wasn't in my group. I was in someone else's group and their lair. They were nice about it. They didn't say anything. They probably had something going on in group chat that I didn't know about, asking who this noob was, but they never said anything to me. So, yeah, I embarrassingly said sorry and ran over to my group. I don't remember if they ever said anything, but it was pretty obvious that I was totally new to everything. Well, I learned how to use waypoints, and I learned how to make sure that the people I saw on my screen were the people I had in my group window. Yeah, so I learned something. If you have noob moments, please don't be shy. Just leave a comment. I want to hear your noob moments, okay? They're just the best part of any game. The first days when you realize you know nothing. And so we can all laugh with each other, not at each other, right? So don't be afraid to leave a comment. Thanks for watching. Take care.